let's talk about the career that you've had at CAE, because you started. I looked at your LinkedIn. It's like you got the job here as a commercial manager. Now, you weren't the owner then, were you? That you were just an employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not saying just an employee, but you were an employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk me through it. How did you get the job? How did it happen?
So I got the job, and somebody who's been on a channel chat before, actually. So I know you've talked with Agre.
Yes.
So Agre and I worked together at Computer Centre. Agre moved to CAE first, and I talked to Agre, and he talked to me about the opportunity and went, "This is very different." But he said, "There's something about this business, and we knew each other well enough to knew the kind of opportunity we wanted to have. He was the same. There was just that feeling we could do more. So that's how it came about. In terms of the role, I remember sitting down with the owner actually just after I'd started, and his line to me was, "I don't know exactly what it is that you're going to do, but I just talked to some people and they said you were good and you could probably help me grow the business." That was my job description.
So you're an analyst at Computer Centre. They've got you in, and they said, "Oh, actually, we just think you can grow the business."
Yeah,
that was the JD.
That was my JD. Kind of in a line at that point.
Wasn't that confusing for you though? Were you thinking, "Well, what we're going into here?"
It was. The great part was day 2. I was in front of a customer. Day 2, we were talking about a project. I was in front of, so I didn't have a lot of time to really be thinking about it. I do remember about a month in having a moment. So having moved from a computer centre at that point, of course, as well, they were setting up Hatfield, and I'd been involved in kind of part of that, and I went from that to this teeny tiny little building, with 20 odd people in it at that point. And about a month in, I absolutely had a moment which went, what have I done? What is it that I'm actually doing here? And you get to make a choice at that point, don't you? You get to retreat back into something and go, I need but I moved because I didn't want the safety blanket. I didn't want that safety net. I wanted to push myself. So going after that moment and realising, no, I need to understand what's going on with the business. And there were so many different things going on to just, actually, you've got to get stuck in and just look at it. And on that basis, there were so many things to happen there. They were growing a services practice. The Cisco relationship was right in its infancy in terms of what was going on. So there was a whole piece there for me to look at it and go, actually, if we did this and this, if we did this bit of training, and things like, our relationship, we'd move up the levels, we'd start to certify and sort of things like that. And it was just getting into what was really going to make that business tick.
Justin, what again, not being disrespectful, but what skills were they buying from you when they suddenly thought, Justin can come in and he can grow the business? Because you weren't some finished article MD at that point, were you?
No way.
So what do you think they saw in you, and what was the remit? What were you good at?
What was I good at? I'm not sure. No. They saw the analytics, right? They saw a piece where I had a brain that could apply some logic to a business that was going off all over the place at that point, that had all kinds of things going on, that at times just needed somebody to be able to say, actually, that fits with that works with that. Here's a logical next step. So there was some logic to what they saw. But the other bit was actually just downright enthusiasm for somebody's business, for me to be able to sit with an owner and actually go, I can really see what you're trying to do here. I'm really excited. I want to do this. I want to be in front of customers. I want to be looking at this. I want the opportunity to be able to do that as directly as possible. And I think what they probably saw then was, okay, there was a logic there. The analytics were there. There were certain things that I could do. But I think they saw an enthusiasm, actually, to just inject into the business.
Which you've still got now.
Yeah, and make stuff happen.
Yeah.
And make stuff happen. And that's what I wanted to be able to, even if we didn't know how that was going to work, that's how it started.
And you got an opportunity in 2004, I believe, I think, to become MD. And what was the difference then? So suddenly you got the title, or because I know we talked before the show went live, and I was thinking, they've actually been through 2 buyouts, and so no, it's 3, isn't it?
Yes,
it's 3 buyouts. So now this is an interesting one, because you're now an employee.
Yep.
Was you then MD and then going into the buyout, or how did it work? Where did the opportunity come?
So I'd had obviously 4 years in the business, at that point, where I'd got to learn it. I really understood it. We've been through so many things with the owner in terms of his thought processes. I became that sounding board for him, actually.
Yeah.
Decision making wise and things like that. I knew the business intimately at that point in terms of what was going on, which was great. So that part of it was important to be able to do that. I think fundamentally what had happened, the owner of the business then had lost his passion for it. There were other things that he wanted to be able to do. He was looking beyond what CAE was at that point. I knew what CAE could do. There were so many areas that it could grow and we could do it, and we were at a point where we had an owner who'd taken it to that point, but actually when it was like we could do this, and it was a bit not sure I really want to do that. Didn't want to take the risk. At that point it was more of a lifestyle. It become that piece that actually the lifestyle he was looking for was different to what CAE, could provide. But we'd got close, around that bit, and we'd ended up, sort of having conversations about it, and it was something that it probably took a bit of time to get to actually. But there was a particular moment, and actually I was presenting at something. This was actually the story in terms of what had happened. We were actually in Dubai. And it was a friend of his was launching a business, a technology business in Dubai, and it's like, could I come out and as part of it help set the launch up a little bit, be involved in that, and actually could you say a few words just as it launches around the industry? And I was like, yeah, great, no problem at all. I thought this was a small business, it was going to be done in front of a few people, no problem. I fly out to Dubai to realise that the launch in the evening is being done in the ballroom of the Burj Al Arab. It's being filmed. One of the Dubai royal family are in attendance, and it's to a ballroom of about 300 people.
This is
in
not
terms of what's going on.
Oh no!
This isn't
say a few words.
This is all of a sudden, being on a stage and being able to talk about the industry at that point and our place in it and what it means in front of these cameras. It meant appearing. Some of the footage was used on Dubai Breakfast News the next morning and things like that. And it was in the aftermath of that. And although we maybe toyed with the idea, that actually we ended up sitting down and he said, this is where he wanted to be. He's like, what I've just seen, he said, you want this, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I absolutely do. I want to be able to take this forward. And it was that, it was that moment actually where it was something, the light bulb moment kind of came up in terms of us wanting to do it. So I became MD as part of that buyout. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. None whatsoever.
So tell the listeners, one day you're a work employee, next year you're an owner. I'm not being funny, you must have been scared out of your life.
I think I would have been more scared if I'd understood what it was really all about. I mean, I knew the business incredibly well. Put together, the business plan was credible in front of the banks from a funding perspective and everything around that, to be able to, I could do all that. I knew nothing at that point. That was 6 months of hell, in terms of I had no idea. That difference was huge in terms of what that meant. Because you go through it, and with buyouts, it's this classic thing. My business plan was beautiful. Right, it was, it was that you would have bought into that. I mean, everyone, it was great. It had, within 2 weeks, probably had no basis in reality whatsoever. Because everything I wanted to do, it's all very well having plans, being able to write it down on paper and things like that, but there's a business to run. There's, a whole company to look after at that point and sort of things like that. I was not prepared for. I was not an MD at that point.
What your background must have helped you in terms of actually what the valuation was and whether it was a good business. So what was the things that you sort of struggled with early doors where you thought actually I've got employees that are their mortgages are on my head, right. Their lifestyles.
Yeah. I had all these great ideas, all these things I wanted to do. We could do this here, we could invest here, we could grow this, we could become this kind of partner, we could do all these things. And I thought, that's what I'm going to get to do. And then realised, no, actually, I have responsibility here for a business, for all those people in that business. And I had a very, very specific moment at home afterwards where I sat there and had a real moment of where that hit home, really hit home, and sort of said,
what have I done?
This is a different level. This is a result. I don't just get to play with this. there's a big responsibility here, and it was tough. And at the same time, you've done all that. This had to be funded. You know, we had bank loans and things like that. You know, there were things that we needed to do. There was immense pressure at that point in terms of kind of what was going on, and that was I learned really quickly.